Well, hello again, and welcome back to another story from my back porch rocking chair. Hello, this is Bobby Autry. If you joined me for part one of the School of Hard Knocks, you already know that some of life's best lessons didn't necessarily come from a classroom. Sometimes they came from simply being a kid, trying something you probably shouldn't have tried, and finding out the hard way why you probably shouldn't have tried it. Oh yeah. Today we're going back to the late 1950s and early 60s to a place called Lake Allatoona and up in an area called Red Top Mountain. That's where our family spent many wonderful days camping, fishing, swimming, and especially water skiing. Buddy, my brother, and I love to ski. And being brothers, as you've heard from other podcasts, naturally we couldn't just enjoy it. We had to compete. Buddy had the finesse, and well, I had, let's just call it creativity. And then we're going to tell you a little bit about Uncle Smitty. You'll have to wait for that one. Before this episode is over, somebody is going to come out of a tree on a water ski. Somebody is going to discover that water and dry land have very different stopping distances. And then one absolutely brilliant prank is going to bring out more authorities than two teenage boys ever expected. So looking back now, I can laugh about it. But mixed in with those laughs were some lessons that have stayed with me for a lifetime. So pull up a chair, get comfortable, and come on back with me to those wonderful family water skiing days. Because this is the School of Hard Knocks, Part 2, the water skiing family tradition. Now, on my mother's side, the Turner family, well, we were just like a traveling show. Everybody got into the act, from my grandfather to my aunts, Laquita and Awita, the twins, you remember, uncles, aunts, cousins, my mom, my dad, my sister Yvonne, and of course, Buddy and me. We could do singles, we could do doubles, we could do triples, and we even had a time when we had 7 skiers all at one time behind the boat. Now that's a show, just like down at Cypress Gardens. But let me break down a couple of our favorite skiing moments. Get that iced tea, nice and sweet. Settle it back, start a rocking, and let's go skiing. My first story is about Buddy. Now, Buddy, he was going to go pro. He was the skier. He liked to do, all of us started off on doubles, but then had to go to a slalom. And then, boy, I tell you, Buddy, he could swing it to the left and swing it to the right and spray everybody. And he could go up and down the course and go in and out of the little balls that we put up out there to ski around. Anything you can think of, but Buddy always wanted to be the professional. He's got to show you how to do it. He had the finesse and back and forth and all the things. And all of us would just, look at him showing off. Well, as we say, Buddy and I always had to compete. So I knew I couldn't out-compete him in the way that he was skiing. So I became the skiing clown. That's right, the skiing clown. I would get out there and I would go on a slalom, and I would kind of like I was going to fall, and I would throw my hands up in the air and I would shake my legs and I'd close my eyes. And I even had a thing that where I would put the rope in my mouth, and I would be able to hold both of my hands out and one leg up and the other leg in the ski. I looked like an airplane going across the water. Oh yeah, and then I'd start shaking and all things, and everybody'd say, "Oh, he's gonna fall, he's gonna fall." No, I didn't. Well, maybe a few times, but again, I had to be the clown. I had to always be looking and doing things and trying to make it different. Now, Buddy, he had to compete with me. And so instead of just doing the slalom and all, he learned and perfected the barefoot skiing. He became the barefoot king around Allatoona and Red Top Mountain. Man alive, I tried it and I tried it and I tried it, and all I did was get hurt feet and a lot of water up my nose. But not Buddy. Boy, he could go out and he would do the skiing on the slalom, and then he would drop the slalom and go barefooting. Wow, I just couldn't compete with that. But sometimes you try anyway. And so all of the family, we always had a lot of fun going to the lake and being up there with a couple of boats, and all of us going out skiing and taking turns, and different people would drive the boat. And you know, that's one thing I did learn from the School of Hard Knocks. It depended upon the driver many times as to how good you could be. If the driver didn't drive the boat right and give you the right tension on the rope and let you be able to do your thing of going across the wake and jumping and all the different things. And in fact, Buddy, again, that's one of the things he learned. This was back when we just had the old wooden skis and just when before fiberglass skis came out. Now they've got all the professional skis and all the other things. We didn't have that. So we had to make do with what we had. And Buddy, he could go out there and he could jump that wake and he could actually turn. Remember from last week with the swing, well, he learned to do that. So now it was without a swing. He was on the ski and he could jump and do a flip and land and keep going. Now, that was a sight. I have to admit it. I was a little jealous. So I said, well, I've got to find something to do. How can I compete with that? He's so good on the slalom. He's good on barefooting. And now here he is turning a flip. What am I going to do? Got to beat Buddy. Well, one of the things we used to do is, again, we would learn that we never, on a slalom, we never go out there and come up out of the water. We would come off the shore. So it had to be the right tension on the boat, going to the rope, and had to signal the driver, and they would take off, and you were ready, and off from the shore you'd go. That was pretty neat. Most people hadn't seen that back then. Pretty common these days. But, well, we could do it one better. There was a stump, and we'd go over there and jump off the stump, and off we'd go. So I came up with the bright idea, if I can do it from the shore, if I can do it from a stump, why can't I do it from a tree? You got it. So, Bobby Ray, I go over, and there's a lot of trees up at Allatoona and Red Top Mountain right next to the shoreline. Big old pine trees. And I climbed the pine tree and got on one of the lower limbs and had somebody hand me up the ski, and then I'd put the ski on my right foot. I would signal to the driver, and the driver would take off. I'd drop from the tree, and of course, I've sunk. Didn't let go of the rope, so I kind of got pulled through, and water up my nose and up my bathing suit and other places we won't talk about, but had to practice, kept doing it. I knew I could do it. And yeah, it finally came a time where I dropped from the tree, in the water. The boat, the rope, and me were all in one accord. And I kept going. And I went out and did all my little clown stuff, and going around, and we'd come back. And of course, it became a common thing. Buddy would go out and do some slaloms. I would go out and do some slaloms. Laquita would do some slaloms. Her and Awita would do some slaloms. My cousin Carol, she would go out and she would do some slaloms. And then all the other people we would do, well, we had to go better. So Buddy would, of course, do his little barefoot thing. Get all the applause. Yay, watch him. Then he would do his flip. Yay, watch him. Then Bobby would go over and climb the tree. And everybody always knew that gravity and the water and you in between, you had to have the right timing. Everybody always wondered if I was going to make it. Well, it became so that I was doing it on a fairly frequent basis. So I got the bright idea. I cut down the limb closest to the water that I'd been using, and I went up a little bit higher. Man, oh man, this is going to be something. Well, it was something you ought to see. I was up there, and the rope was down, and trying to get enough slack in it, and I motioned for the driver to take off. And there he goes. The rope's getting tight. And you got to have the timing from the time that you jump from the tree to the time you get in the water to have enough speed to take you forward. Well, that didn't happen. Boat took off. Rope got tight. I dropped like a rock. And you know, I learned the higher you go, the further you fall. And it was over. Oh my goodness. I couldn't beat Buddy. I had to give him the crown. But there's got to be something I can do. We'll have to wait and see. Then, let me mention my Uncle Smitty. Now, I could talk about Smitty for the next 2 weeks and not tell you everything. Smitty was just so talented in so many ways, and he was always the one everybody in the family looked up to. We never knew what he was going to do, but he could do everything so good, and he always made everybody know it too. That's Smitty. Smitty was great. He was my idol, so to speak. And Smitty, he was one of those, he could come up and he would put the ski on, and the boat would take off, and he would just come off from the shore just like water, in water, just all together. And he could go out and do all the different things, and he would kind of smile and wave at everybody, and he would sing while we was skiing, and all the girls would go, "Ooh," and all the boys would go, "Nurr." Oh, well. And Smitty, just like the rest of us, when he got through, he had to come gliding in up to the shore, stop, and just kind of walk off of it, and everybody would applaud. Well, on this one particular Saturday, we were at Red Top Mountain again. We was out skiing, and Smitty came. And we knew all the girls from all the other camps and all around, as well as everybody else, was going to go, "Oh, Smitty's here." And Smitty did his thing. But this time, Buddy was driving the boat. And Smitty was wanting to go as fast as he could and really do some things and showing off. And it's time for him to come in, and Buddy comes whipping around in the boat. Smitty comes up the water. He tried to slow down, but it wasn't going to work. That ski hit the shore. He kept, instead of walking, he went running, both arms just going as fast as they could. And right there was one of those pine trees. Smack! One arm around one side of the tree, one arm around the other side of the tree, one leg around one side of the tree, the other leg around the other side of the tree. And he goes, "Oh!" And he fell backwards. And of course, we all thought he was dead. He was unconscious. He knocked himself out. And everybody's over there, "Oh, Smitty, are you okay? Are you okay?" Everybody trying to put water on his head and trying to, "Oh, somebody get some ice, somebody get some ice." And all of a sudden, Smitty kind of shakes his head and he gets up and he says, "That's what I was planning." Of course, you were planning to come up here and run and hit a tree and knock yourself out. Well, you know what? You can just knock yourself out and do it again. Anyway, so that was Smitty. And that brings us to the next story. As I mentioned, Buddy and I both became pretty good at slaloms and tricks and all this stuff, but it required a lot of practice. And we would go up to Lake Allatoona, and we'd go up there after school and go skiing. We'd go on weekends. We even got wetsuits because we did know how to scuba dive. We had some aqua lungs, and that's a story for another time, when we would go to the old rock quarries and go deep in that clear water that was there. And we had so much fun. Again, that's for another time. It's going to come up in this, though. So we had our wetsuits, and we'd go out and practice. And we got so that we could just come up and get the rope, have the ski on, tell somebody to start driving. Whoever it was, either Buddy would drive for me, I'd drive for him. Could be my mom, could be my sister, could be my dad. And he didn't do that a lot because he didn't like to have to pull us and have to look back at us. But we would get up there, and we could, even after church, instead of going and changing into bathing suits, we would go up there and just ski with our suits on. And everybody would watch and say, "Look at those boys." And we could ski around and just get a little water spray on us and back up to the shore, right to the edge, get out and walk, and only just Maybe the bottom of our trousers would be wet, maybe a little bit on the coat. But we'd be out there skiing with a shirt and a tie and a coat and suit pants and all that stuff. And everybody would just think that's the greatest thing in the world. Well, Buddy and I, we kind of figured out, well, everybody comes and watch us do this. Why don't we do something? So we concocted a prank, and he and I practiced it. And then the day came. We go, Buddy's driving, I'm skiing, people are watching. We were close to the ramp where all the boats would put in and everybody would park, and it was close to a lot of the other camping sites, and people hadn't seen us before. They come take a look. On this particular day, though, this was the start of our 2-week vacation. And we talked about vacations before. Well, a lot of times our vacation would be spent at the water. 2 weeks of camping up at Lake Allatoona in different areas that we'd be at. So there's a lot of people camping. We were on vacation. Got there on Friday night, set up the camp. Saturday morning, we were out there. And then it came time that Buddy and I thought there was enough people. We could get some attention. So Buddy's driving. I'm skiing, going around doing crazy clown things. Everybody's watching. And we get over to the other side of the lake, still where everybody could see us. It was, kind of a cove area. And all of a sudden, as I'm doing my clown act, if you call it that, just being silly, and then I fell. And Buddy, he turned around to come get me, and he couldn't find me. And he's looking around. Everybody's watching. Buddy keeps going around. He shrugs his shoulders and says, oh, well. And he goes over to where the slalom ski was. He picked it up and put it in the boat. He stood in the back of the boat and pulled the ski rope in. Looked around again. He said, oh, well. And he took off. And everybody was saying, what happened? Where is he at? That boy fell and he went off without him. Well, the prank was this. As I mentioned about the aqua lungs and the scuba diving we would do, well, we took one of the aqua lung tanks and we had tied it to the bottom of this area, and we put a little balloon on it. It would be right under the water where we could see it as we went by. Nobody else could see it. Well, Buddy coming around, I fell. I went swimming down to the tank. Buddy looked for the water ski, picked it up, brought in the rope, took off. No Bobby. I put the aqua lung on and I swam over, wasn't too far to where the bridge was. And I went over to where it was and I come out where nobody could see me. I took the aqua lung off and I hid it. And I went walking back toward the area where all the people were at. And I go up and everybody said, oh, what happened? And somebody, Buddy and I didn't think this thing through. Somebody called the Rangers because we were on state park property and the lake. And somebody called an ambulance and somebody called, I guess, the county police, whatever it was. It was all these people. And I was over here listening. What happened? And they said, this guy was out there skiing and he fell. And the guy that was in the boat, he couldn't find him. He just put everything up and took off. I started snickering. The Rangers were there talking, taking statements from everybody. The people from the ambulance was there trying to figure out, if they're going to have to find the body. Never thought about all of this attention. Not that kind of attention anyway. And then somebody spotted me, said, hey, isn't that the boy that was skiing? And somebody else said, yeah, it is. That's him. Well, the Rangers came over to me and the police came over. They started questioning me and I couldn't do nothing but tell the truth. And we was just playing. And I explained to them what we had done. Well, I had to go down and show them where the aqua lung was at. Put it in the car. We're going to see your daddy and your mama, boy. And so the Rangers took us back to the campsite. Oh, that was a silence, wasn't it? I remember it well. We started pulling up. Buddy saw the Ranger car. He saw me in it. And Buddy said, I gotta go. I'm going to go ride in the boat. And he went down to get in the boat. And the Ranger said, hey, son, Hold on. Stop. Don't you go nowhere. So Buddy comes back up. They get me out of the car. Mom and Dad come over. What's going on? What's going on? And they told him. Wasn't real happy. They apologized. Said, I'm sorry. Our boys are just being boys, and I know that's not a really good thing, and we'll be sure that doesn't happen again. And the officer gave us a good talking to. And he said, next time, you're going to have handcuffs when I put you in that car, boy. I was scared to death. Tears running down my little eyes. Buddy was over there shaking in his bare feet. We went back to the camp. Mom and Dad sat us down. They read us the riot act. Well, that's what you can call it, but it was really bad. And vacation, this was day one. Our punishment for the 2 weeks that we were on vacation. Neither Buddy nor myself could drive the boat. Neither Buddy or I could go skiing. We had to stay at camp. We could fish. We could swim. But it was staying away from the boat, staying away from the skis. And that's pretty bad for somebody that does it like we did and did it so often. That was really harsh punishment. But it didn't stop there. You see, Mom and Dad made us go to all of the camping sites around us and apologize to all the people for making such a fuss and doing something so stupid. Not only did we have to go apologize, but we had to volunteer at each one of the camping sites to help clean the tables, to help make up a fire, put it out, whatever it may be. Whatever needed to be done at any of the campsites, we had to do it every day for 2 weeks. So we were reminded every day, don't do stupid stuff. And, well, I think we learned from it. So that was the consequences. And as I've always learned from that point on, many people that know me today, in my preaching, in my teaching, and just talking, I tell you, there's choices, decisions, and consequences. Well, that's another class completed at the School of Hard Knocks for this week. And you know, sitting here all these years later, I can still see that lake. I can hear that old Mercury engine come to life. I can see Buddy cutting across the water. I can see Smitty heading toward the shore, looking for the trees. And 2 boys who thought they had dreamed up the greatest prank anybody had ever seen. Well, we sure didn't know everything back then, but we were learning. We learned that the higher you go, sometimes the further you fall. We learned that speed on the water isn't necessarily the same thing as speed on dry land. And maybe, just maybe more importantly, we learned that something that seems funny to you may not be funny to anybody else, especially when somebody else has to deal with the consequences. Mom and Dad, they didn't need a psychology book to teach us that lesson. They had something much more effective. 2 weeks and plenty of campground chores. And somehow, through all the bumps, the bruises, the mistakes, the laughter, and the consequences, Buddy and I both grew up. And I think we did okay. Those days are long gone now, but what a wonderful memory they have left behind. Family together, campfires at night, good friends, an old boat on the lake, and 2 brothers forever trying to outdo one another. Maybe that's one of the blessings of getting older. We can finally look back at some of the things we did and truly say, Lord, thank you for the memories, and thank you for getting us through them. I'm Bobby Autry, and these have been a few more stories and tall tales from my back porch rocking chair. Thank you for pulling up a chair and spending a little time with me. Don't forget, come back again, because I've got plenty more stories to tell, And around this back porch and in this family, there is always room for one more. Until next time, stay blessed, keep smiling, and keep making memories.